The Sublime Luminary of by Erik Meyer. The Whiteout. Theodore had come to stay with his grandmother for the holidays, dropped off with presents at the A-frame house on the bluffs that overlooked the Mississippi River. His parents, employed by a startup seed company in central Wisconsin, had scheduled themselves a childless trip to Hawaii, and Theodore did not resent their need for a break, as he had recently turned 10 and, as a single child, could already spot the warning signs of burnout. His mother had bags under her eyes and often forgot to season the stew in the crock pot. His father spent increasing amounts of time in the bathroom and had stopped offering homework help. Not that Theodore needed homework help, but he did like being asked. As a 5th grader, he'd signed up to be a crossing guard at school. Twice, he'd gotten to read the morning announcements. For the trip, he'd been told to leave his tablet at home. No electronics, no turning into a zombie, no screen time, they'd said. So school had let out on a Friday, and his parents picked him up with the car already packed, driving past rows of pine trees until they'd turned down the winding driveway that led to a white blanketed yard filled with bird feeders. If anything, going to see Grandma Betsy was a welcome change, even if he didn't like the strong smell of the vinegar she cleaned the litter boxes with. "You know," she said, "you are startlingly handsome." Theodore spent Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in new sweaters and pajama pants, but by the 26th, after Grandma Betsy finished her crossword, they both needed an outing and went for a drive to town. Since Grandpa Prank had passed, her cat collection had grown. Sadie, a white Persian, was missing her tail. Bobo, a Siamese, chased his shadow. Between the house and the diner and lacrosse, they had the companionship of Calypso, a piebald longhair who stretched along the windshield, soaking up heat from the defrost. They stopped for hot chocolate. Theodore looked at books about chess, which he'd played at school but never gotten good at, and by the time they got back on the highway and headed for home, the sun had set with accumulation falling through the high beams. "Blustery weather," Grandma Betsy said. Calypso purred and the engine hummed across County Road blacktop, Theodore rubbing the cat's belly as his grandmother switched on the wipers. "Do you think they're hiking up the side of a volcano?" he asked. "Who?" "Mom and Dad, in Hawaii." "Oh, them." Rubber blades sped across the windshield, and falling flakes turned to water against warm glass. Already, snow was drifting into the lane from the shoulder. "There wasn't anything on the radar," Grandma Betsy said. "Has Calypso always liked driving?" Theodore asked. Wind buffeted the car, and the highway vanished, momentarily, replaced by a wall of white. "Calypso was your grandfather's favorite cat," Grandma Betsy said. She leaned towards the steering wheel, and as she tapped the brakes, a whiteout engulfed the vehicle. Blinding white, white like a fresh coat of paint. Tires left the road, spinning, a smooth exit from pavement. Theodore and Grandma Betsy both frozen in place, and they waited. They waited to hit rocks or a guardrail before the vehicle wrapped itself around a tree. They waited to fly through the front window of a sleepy roadside diner. They waited for a mailbox to take off the rear view mirror. Theodore gripped the shoulder belt and leaned against the door. Grandma Betsy's knuckles went white. They waited and waited. But strangely, the '86 Chevy Celebrity neither flipped on its side nor launched off a bridge. It sailed through a chalky sea of white, engine idling, supported by a lightness that felt like flying, a smoothness that lasted long enough for both Theodore and his grandmother to become perplexed and wonder what was happening. "Are we still on the road?" he asked. "I don't think so," she said. Engulfed in a blizzard, seconds turned to minutes. Grandma Betsy found that her cell had no service. The radio played static. They surged forward, floating in a sea of unchanging light. "Are we dead?" Theodore asked. "I don't think so," Grandma Betsy said. "How would we know?" "I pinched myself and it felt like me." The heater kicked out warmth and Calypso purred on the dash, feeling hot and sweaty. Theodore unzipped his puffy winter jacket. Confusion, it turns out, can be quite exhausting, and after the initial shock gave way to fatigue, everyone fell asleep, snoozing as the car nosed through colorless space. Snoring, passengers ferried through a soft glow that carried them to parts unknown.